And I think we're live. I will wait to, as always, see chat respond to me, and then we will. Hey, look at that! We're live! Hooray! Hello, everyone. Welcome to DevStream number 6. This is our sixth time sitting here chatting with you guys, and we're really excited to be here talking about culture, talking about the newest Dev Diary, and I think we have a good show for you guys. It should be a fun one today. I have a new guest on our show today. Welcome, Virginia, to the DevStream.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Just to start, because I know this is the first time everyone's meeting you. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself, kind of who you are and what your role is in the project, and just introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay, so I'm the in-house producer of Black Sea. What I do is torturing the team, basically. I'm the necessary evil, as one of our programmers said, because I'm the person who tracks all the tasks and just goes and asks people, are you ready with that? Are you ready with that? So yeah, that's it mostly. But I also take a part in the design process, mostly when we're talking about more historical features like the cultures. I worked mostly on that for the past half a year maybe. But also when there are some historical things that can get into already set design. Because flavor is always good, but we're not recreating history in Knights of Honor 2. We're adapting it. So
yeah. So, you played Knights of Honor, I'm guessing, a decent amount, right? Do you have? Of course. Do you have I love asking this question to see what everyone says. Do you have like a favorite kingdom or thing that you played in the classic game that you kind of preferred?
Well, it might sound as a cliche, but always I've played with Bulgaria when I was little, because of course it was from Bulgarian studio. I was really hyped. I was, I think, 4th grade when the game came out. So I always played Bulgaria. When I grew up, I tried different kingdoms, but Bulgaria always.
I think it's a very common thing, I think, to play your home nation first. I was actually reading Discord a couple days ago, and there was a guy in there talking about how he always plays Wales first. He was super excited about all the different kingdoms and Knights of Honor 2, but he's like, gotta get ready for my Wales play though. That's his first play every time. I really respect that a lot. And
it's pretty normal, yeah.
Yeah, and a new question: what do you think? Do you have like a favorite? Because you've been like we're talking about culture today. You've been very deep in all the research. Do you have like a favorite historical figure that is kind of either from the past or some of this kind of surface as you've been doing some of this research?
Well, I get a new one, a new historical figure that I really like because of all the research I did, and that's Tamar of Georgia. I've never read Georgian history before I started working in Black Sea Games, but now she's my absolute hero. She basically brought the golden age to Georgia, fixed the economy, the culture was great and flourishing, and most of all, she had this really badass army. At one point, Georgia had more knights than every other country in the Middle Ages. So wow. She kicked the Shirvanshahs, the Seljuks, the Sultakids, and she even got to be really respected by Saladin. And when Saladin captured Jerusalem, she was like, hey, dude, in that city you got there's some Georgian relics. We want that back. And he gave it back, the relics. And also the Georgian pilgrims and envoys were the only Christians allowed free passage in the cities without having to hide their country banners. So Tamar was pretty great.
There's a lot of cool correlates there, but like to imagine like you having this reputation and Knights of Honor 2 and asking for something from a kingdom, they're like, respect all your knights. You can just have it. Don't come mess with us. I like that. So this week we are talking all about culture. And hopefully a lot of people have read the Dev Diary, but if you haven't, please go check it out. It's at community.knightsofhonor.com. It's a great place for you to get connected with our community on our forums there. It's where we post all of our Dev Diaries. Hopefully one of our helpful associates in the chat can post the links. People can jump in there and check it out. But every 4 weeks or so, 3 to 4 weeks, we're releasing a new Dev Diary on different topics. And today this week it's all about culture. And this is something that I know Virginia has done. So Virginia, or I see Virginia and GiGi, and I know when I met you a year plus ago or so, I remember you being introduced as Virginia. So Which do you go? Which do you prefer?
Well, actually, most people know me as GiGi, and GiGi came first. So I was named GiGi by my big sister, who is 11 years older than me. So she was a big fan of this Italian puppet show called Topo Gigio. It was about this rat, Gigio. So she was like, yeah, my sister is going to be named after a rat. And then my mother was just trying to cover this up because she promised her, okay, you're gonna name your sister. And she was reading Virginia Woolf when she was pregnant with me, so that's how Virginia came to be. But yeah, most people know me as GiGi.
Okay. Well, I'll try to remember to call you GiGi, but I've been calling you Virginia for so long now, it's hard to like change it.
Yeah, don't
I just
worry.
noticed it's all good. So, first off, I think you've been talking a lot about, or I know there's been a lot of research in the Middle Ages. Can you talk a little bit about some of the ways that you've been gathering some of this information to kind of set the stage for this culture injection into the game?
Well, it's great that we are living in the 21st century because most public libraries all over the world, they have really great digital archives. So this is what I've been using mostly because this is the only way you can actually get a good map of the medieval world. So yeah, I gathered a lot of maps that help me to distribute the cultures on our own map more correctly and efficiently. And other super helpful things were the population surveys that were done during the Middle Ages, like the Doomsday Book that was ordered by William the Conqueror in 1086, I believe. I hope I don't get the year wrong. And of course, a lot of historical books and
Someone in chat will probably call you out on it, so.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, and of course, I also used Wikipedia, but mostly to get me to other sources because, yeah, most of the information on Wikipedia is really correct, but we need more than what is written there.
Yeah, I found it very interesting that you know, it's almost like a balancing act. And I know we talked about this in another stream where it's like when you get so much information and you're learning all this stuff, it's sometimes hard to make decisions on which things you include and which things you don't. And I know from some of my weekly discussions with Besso and whatnot that there was quite some hot debate over which provinces to include or not. And at one point the list maybe got a little bit too big, and it's like, oh, we can't have that many, or gameplay's gonna be ruined. We have to go down a little bit. So you know, how did we handle that conversation about when it comes to cultures and kingdoms, how we included ones or decided not to include certain ones?
Well, first, the most helpful thing that we have was the reference years that we are using for each of the time periods. So we went from there. We basically picked the kingdoms that existed during those years, but some kingdoms, of course, existed in the same year. Like the medieval map of Europe, especially, changed week to week at some point because of all the wars and all the diplomatic weirdness that was going on. So really, when this thing happened, we decided to choose the kingdoms that were, you know, that brought more cultural diversity. For example, that's because of that, there are lands that should be territories of the Ilkhanate, but we actually turned them into vassals, so we can have more diversity there. For the cultures especially, it was a really brutal head chopping there. Because from a gameplay perspective, we couldn't have 300 provinces just in Europe, which is actually realistic. They were too small. We couldn't put enough settlements in them, and the map became really unbalanced because you have all these provinces in Europe, and then you look over the steppes and you see 20 provinces, which was not good from gameplay perspective. So to tackle that, well, we just went through the map and we're like,
yeah.
Yes.
So when it comes to those decisions, were there any like can you give me one that where you were like, I really wish this one had stayed in, but it was one that just kind of was right on the line that you ended up having to let go? Like, that's part of making games. Sometimes you have to make those kind of choices.
Yes, there is this province in the Low Countries that was actually in the original Knights of Honor that we cut from this one, and that was Utrecht. We there were just so many provinces, and we really decided to keep others like Bruges and Brussels, for example, and Utrecht got to go. So we couldn't keep everything, and mostly we decided which to keep by seeing what kind of big events happened in those provinces, especially talking about Europe, of course, and we picked the kingdoms that were more relevant to the time period.
So I know that there was also a lot of discussion in the Dev Diary about how some of these cultures that we were doing research on, we were trying to use them as references where we could bring some of those visuals into life in the game. Obviously, we can't reflect everything, but there were some very specific areas of, like, whether it be buildings or castles or just elements to help that local culture come out visually when you're looking at the world map. How did we go about finding all this reference material? I mean, this is a long time ago. So, I mean, what kind of ways do we find how things look visually and bring that into our art pipeline?
Well, it depended on the culture, really, but mostly we were lucky to get the digital archive of the New York Public Library, especially for the Arab world.
Okay.
There are documents in that archive that are actually visual references for architectures. They recreated the architectural plans of mosques, of baths, and things like that, just from the archaeological evidence they have for that. So we use that for the Arabs especially, and where we could, we use them for the other cultures as well. But yeah, this is how we went through it.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah, paintings were really useful as well, but paintings are often very stylized, so
It can be tricky to interpret from a style. That's still even true today, right? Like, imagine trying to look at like Japanese anime or something as a reference point for Japanese culture, 500 years in the future from now, and it's like, I don't know if that's exactly how things look, but I mean, it's it's kind of that equivalent, I imagine. So I noticed in the Dev Diary, you mentioned that there were some cultures that were kind of difficult to find visual references for, and you had to kind of like, interpolate between kind of the regional area as opposed to finding. Is there like you have an example of a specific one that was really difficult to find information about?
Yes, the Finno-Ugric tribes and actually the whole steppe region, so to speak. First, there were no names preserved for any Finnish people before the end of the 13th century, which was a really brutal blow to us, because the name pool for that culture had to stay really barren. So we added some modern names that are cool Easter eggs for metal fans. Yeah. And then for the visual part, we had to actually rely on modern sources, because some of those tribes are actually surviving today, and there are many historical recreators from them. For example, the Komi tribe, they still wear those traditional dresses, so we got that information from the modern sources. Yeah. But in general, to actually do all of the work needed for that region, we had to take some liberties, and people will notice, of course. What we did was to make the whole region a bit more Mongol than it was, because we had, as you said, a lot of paintings which showed how the Mongolians looked like, but not a lot of info on the others.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And I'm guessing, like, you probably you told one of those stories earlier about your Georgian fan, but do you have any other kind of fun tidbits that maybe would be interesting to tell the audience? Maybe a story that you kind of come up while you're doing all this research that you think could be really fun to share?
Yes.
And I'm being a little bit selfish too. I'm sure, like, the audience are like, oh, we want to hear more about the game. We want more gameplay stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, I'd love to hear a good history story, a quick one that you found interesting.
Well, actually, this history story is in the game. So we have real historical royal families. Yes, and this part was really interesting for me to research, because I played this game. Who was the main wife? And I'm not talking only about the kings that had these huge harems. I'm talking about Western kings as well, because they married all the time to have an heir and a spare, as they like to say. So yeah, like Genghis Khan had like a dozen wives, but Borte Khatun was his queen. But when we look at the Western kings, we have cases like King Pedro of Portugal in our last period, who had a wife, Constance of Castile, but was actually in love with one of her maids, Ines. So he literally started screwing over the diplomatic relationship with Castile because of her. And when Constance died mysteriously, Pedro refused to marry another woman than the unworthy Ines. So his father, at the time Pedro was still a prince, his father, King Alfonso IV, got angry and made the most natural thing ever, arranged for her to be murdered, of course. So Pedro became king. He got 2 of the 3 assassins and actually killed them publicly, ripping out their hearts. Then said that he was actually secretly married to Ines, and afterwards he dug up her body and coronated her, which was even more impressive when you know that she was actually in fact decapitated. And okay, the thing about the coronation is probably a myth, but Pedro and Ines, till this day, are actually buried opposite one another. So that according to the legend, at the last judgment, they can look at each other when they rise from their graves.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
I think
yeah,
it's
well,
there's a lot of fun like stories out there, and I actually like. I mean, obviously, you know, the game's gonna have some very different elements, but there are some of these things where you can actually like do assassinations and like take over nations and whatnot with that. So in a weird way, we have some of those moments that can happen organically in the gameplay too, which is really cool. I saw one set of questions that showed up in the stream about how big the map is. We definitely have talked about that on the previous dev stream. I can't remember which one. I want to say it was DevStream 1 or DevStream 2. The map is substantially larger than it was in the original Knights of Honor. So I can't remember. I think Vesto said something like, I can't remember the exact percentage, so I don't want to quote myself. I'd have to go back and remind myself exactly how much larger it is, but it's going to be substantially larger. We're increasing the size to include more of North Africa. You get more of the Arabian Peninsula, a little more of Eastern Europe, and even a little bit of Asia in there. So yeah, you have a lot more provinces, substantially more provinces, as well as just a larger geographical space to play in. So moving on, I think that there's one thing I love about this is really trying to make the game more immersive and more kind of historically accurate. But I think at the same time, I know we talked about our pillars back in the Pillars dev diary. You know, it's gameplay over historical accuracy, but trying to find historical accuracy and things we can bring in whenever we want. And I love all of the research and all the time that you guys have invested in trying to bring that forward. I think it's really, really cool.
Thank you.
I also think, and I don't know if my lovely host helper Alex here can put it up there. One other thing that I thought was really fun just to comment on was the in the dev diary we have that awesome key image of the 2 marshals, and I love the idea of having like when you choose your initial starting kingdom, depending on where you choose it, you have this kind of look for your marshals that can be part of that initial choice on where you start. And I love the different like styles of marshals. They're really, really awesome.
Yes, that was our goal when a player pick a kingdom, to really feel like he's leading his kingdom and his armies, of course. And I especially love the Nordic marshal in the game right now. And also you've seen the concept art for the steppe marshal, and this will be awesome as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those flavor things, and I think it's so cool to have those decisions. Like I'm gonna choose to lead a kingdom in this part of the world, and then having that decision reflected. So that's really neat. Well, I know we need to get Alex on here because we have other questions to go through, but do you have any other kind of things you want to add in, or things you want to share with the audience before we move on to the next segment?
Well, just this little thing. I know that you and Alex are going to talk about unit sets, and yeah, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were working on getting more special units in the game.
Units, you mean like the different units and armies, right? Like the different individual,
yes,
yes. Okay.
Yes. So we were working on getting more special units for different cultures, and we got this, Christianized Nordic weird war cleric. He looked really, really cool with full plate armor, and yeah, he was a cavalry unit, of course. So we proposed this unit to the artists. The artists are super excited about it, and then I show it to the game designers. And Alex decides to send me picture of the war cleric from Warhammer 40k. So yeah, the war cleric is not going to be in Knights of Honor 2. He just looks so ridiculous, and despite the fact that he's historically accurate, people won't believe that this is actual history, because this dude looks like he's going to pull a holy grenade and go make Diablo cry.
Really? Wow.
So yeah,
That would be, I would love to see, maybe on the next stream we could share that image just to show it with the audience, the actual historical image. I'd love to see that. That sounds
I'm gonna
crazy.
send it to you.
Yeah. It's funny though, if you think about, like, it's a weird thing to remember, but I mean, people have been people forever, right? So people still have these crazy ideas of what they wanted to look like, and you have these warriors or these famous knights or whatever that, you know, did embellish and make themselves look over intimidating or over cool, and we look at it and go, oh, that looks so modern or so exaggerated. And it's like, well, no, people still were creative back then, and they did just as much ridiculous stuff. And but you're right. I think maybe some people wouldn't buy it. Like, oh, that's a fantasy knight. That's not a real knight. Like, no, not necessarily. People still had crazy things they want to do then too. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, Virginia, GiGi, thank you so much for joining us today on the stream. It's been awesome having you.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, and I'm sure we'll have another stream in the future where you can join us. The audience will get to know you a little bit. And now we're going to transfer over to bring Alex on. I know there's a little bit of a... Oh, look at that. We already have Alex on there. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Hey, guys. It's nice to join in. But I'm not sure I can follow up on that story for the dead Portuguese guys. It's hard to say something more interesting, but I'll try.
Yeah, I love how we're all even in a dev stream like this, when we're all doing like virtual streams anyways, we're also still, like, before in the dev streams you guys would just hot seat, and one person would get up, another person would sit in, but the office is closed now, so everyone's streaming from home, and we only have so many green screen backgrounds and whatnot to go on. So Alex, thank you so much for showing us a little bit of your world and jumping on the stream. So
oh, you're always welcome. I have beer.
Awesome. Okay, so Alex, let's move on to your stuff about you. So great to have you back, and I know we're talking about the culture stuff today. There's a lot of gameplay and game stuff elements that were in that dev diary, and I think I know everyone's always hungry for gameplay, so it's awesome to get into this stuff with you. To start off, I mean, culture seems to play a really big role in how you kind of plan and execute your conquest. I mean, this is a core part about when you're going to sit there and decide to go to war, and the cost of that war and what it results with. I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah, it's all connected to the new occupation thing that we talked about recently. It's quite easier to convert population of similar cultures to yours, especially if they're from exactly the same culture. So basically, you can conquer much more easily new provinces that follow your culture, and everything even starts before the conquest, because you can start the conversion even if you're not in war with the kingdom.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I mean, if you think about taking over territories and that are far away from you or aren't a part of you, it's a lot harder to hold on to them and make it interesting, for those people to join your kingdom when they don't even know who you are. Like, they're not even, you're just some foreigners coming in, and they're like, oh, why do we want these guys to rule us? It's very difficult. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yep.
Go ahead, please.
What I wanted to mention is that the levels of cultures are, it depends if you're from the same culture or family, or different family at all, or of course the same culture. So we have two levels. There are families of the cultures, and also there are something like sub-families, and yeah, it's actually two levels of the cultures.
That completely makes sense, because you have like the ones that are directly yours, and then ones that are kind of related to your culture, and those two layers kind of play against each other.
Exactly, yeah. And we even had an idea to have even more levels, but we had to stop somewhere. So
Yeah. You can't make it infinite, right? Or the game will get way too complicated.
yeah, it's very hard to say that people from different kingdoms are from the same cultural family, because there are a lot of differences. But we had to make some to compromise a bit, because yeah, they were getting too many.
Yeah, makes sense. So now when you talk about like having actual like I guess like issues when you're taking over someone that's of a culture different than you, are we talking just rebellions? Is it like what kind of problems show up if it's just two of you?
Well, the problems, first, if the cultures are very different, there is a bigger chance that the local population will rise and help the ruler in the battles. So you can get more troubles dealing with the locals. And then even if you manage to occupy the province, there's much higher risk that there will be tension. And this might be, in the worst case, rebellions against you, which are usually loyal to the original owner of the province. But even if there are no rebellions, because there are some methods you can suppress the reaction of the locals if you have a strong fist, so to say. Even then, you have problems. They refuse to pay taxes, don't join your army, and so on. So tension is always problematic, and you have to either be very consistent in repressing the people from different cultures, or you have to try to convert them, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because you have that kind of it's not just rebellion, there's also like economic consequences and those kind of things. So I like that it's a little bit multi-layered. That's very cool. So I know that like there's this whole thing about like integrating cultures in and trying to like, or spreading the culture and kind of going, hey, you know what, we're gonna make you part of our culture, and then that's gonna, you know, be what pulls you into like our kingdom and makes you more efficient. But is there a way to actually make to be that ruthless dictator, to go in there and be like, no, you know what, I don't care about my culture, I'm just going to suppress you guys, and you know, you're gonna follow my lead whether you like it or not, I'm taking all the money that I deserve, and you're not going to rebel, like this is the way it works? Can you still kind of have that play too?
Well, you can try to do that, and it can actually happen, but still it will take time. You cannot simply convert by force the local population, like bam, and it will take time. You have to surround the province, keep your control there, and so on. So you can do it without any help of clerics, for example, without very big cultural tension. Once you destroy the enemy kingdom, or they are just a minority inside your kingdom, they will sooner or later convert. But yeah, it will take time, and you will have problems meanwhile.
Makes a lot of sense. And that's, I mean, it's even when you're being like a ruthless tyrant, you still need some of that time to exert your force. There'll be people that resist, and that completely makes sense. I just like
Yeah,
there's these different paths. That's really cool.
we,
So
we have. Sorry.
good, good.
We have discussed some more forceful methods for conversion, which reduce the local population a bit, but
Oh, no.
so far they are not in the game, but we're not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a balancing act there, right? I mean, yeah, I completely understand.
Right.
So we also talked about, I think, and something that's we even GiGi mentioned as a reference, and her part of the stream, we're discussing the those different unique units that are kind of a part of each of these different cultures, because you know, it's not just about the cultural gameplay and how cultures interact, but it's also about like the personality and the benefits and bonuses that some of these different regions have. So I mean, I know we talked, or it's in the dev diary, about some of these unique units that are in these different areas, and this is something that was in Knights of Honor 1, right? So you know, this is something we're doing more of maybe in Knights of Honor 2, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have a bit more cultural related units, and what we are now trying is to make more gameplay differences between those units, not just basic statistical, but additional effects of some. And
Oh, like what?
for
Are there any
example,
you're willing to share? I don't know if
yeah, sure,
this
why
one.
not? Why not?
Okay, hooray. Good.
One example is the Kennel Riders. So this is anti-cavalry cavalry, because horses are afraid.
Cavalry.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Horses are actually afraid from the smell of camels.
Are you
And,
serious?
yeah, absolutely. It's historical
I
fact.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and you can use camel-mounted units to scare off the other kingdoms' cavalries.
Wow.
So-
Have you ever ridden a camel before?
Did we have camel in the first game?
No, I said, have you ever ridden on a camel before?
Me? No, never.
No? Okay. Wow. I didn't realize their smell was so pungent that horses would be like, nope, I'm out. Forget this. I don't want anything to do with these weird.
Yeah, true story.
That's
and-
crazy. Okay. So I imagine like some of this is probably, makes things a little bit difficult to balance, right? Because you have so many different like special effects and things you have to consider about like all camel cavalry versus normal cavalry and kind of thinking through this as a designer. I mean, that sounds like it's a lot of challenge.
Yeah, of course. The more statistics you have, it's more difficult, but we're doing this all the time. We are changing all the time stuff in the game, and when we change something else, the balance of the units always changes. So we also always try to catch up, and it will be complete when the game is completed. It can never be completed before that, or even later on.
I know that the stream always loves to hear more gameplay details. So I mean, are there a couple other units maybe you can talk to us about aside from just our fun camel riders?
Well, there are, for example, Varanian mercenaries. I'm not sure if this is the proper pronunciation in English, but these are pretty much Viking guys, and they, and they are something like mercenaries inside your city, because they were famously contracted, for example, in Byzantium. So you can hire them without spending population and without any need of other buildings to produce them, because they're mercenaries.
Oh, okay.
But they're inside your city. So there are, some. We're experimenting with this actually, because we have to balance it well. We don't want to make something overpowered, and they are more expensive than usual units you hire. But it's they're just different. So we're trying to make bigger differences between culturally specific units right now.
That's really cool. Actually, I remember in the I think it was it was the last DevStream or the DevStream before, you and I were talking about the like the different like ways that being different different armies that you raise could have different costs. Like some could be based on gold or more food or whatever. Like they have different kind of impacts. And I, we talked about how that was tied to culture. But I love hearing these unique ways that different units could potentially, we're still working on some of this stuff, but potentially have kind of a different decision-making process. It's like, okay, if I either conquer or I play in this part of the world, then I open up these opportunities where I can maybe ramp up my power differently. That's really cool.
Right. One additional thing that we have pointed, it's interesting, is to have different terrain and weather bonuses. Not exactly weather, but if you're in the northern parts or in the deserts, some units might have bonuses there. We have not yet implemented and decided whether we want this to be a part of the game, but it's probable to have this.
That's really cool. By the way, I love how now chat is talking about my beard and how I would make a good, I guess, a template for the Nordic. So this is my coronavirus beard. This is my quarantine beard. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep it. I've been doing this while we're all doing the whole stay-at-home thing. Yeah, I guess that makes me a more I'm working on the immersive angle, Alex. I'm just trying to make myself, fit into
Nice.
the theme of the game a little bit. It's not just the game; it's also the staff, right? We're all trying to make the game. Do you have any particular units or culture types that you really like? Like, that you end up trying to play? You end up finding yourself playing more frequently or messing with more frequently?
English longbowmen, because they're very good for defense and very good anti-cavalry, but you have to protect them because they're not so armored. And yeah.
What is it about? What's funny you say that, because someone in chat also mentioned the English longbowman, and I personally love the idea of why is it that I think it's a very natural thing to be like, man, like giant, really powerful bows just seem cool. I think that's a very natural thing, because everyone always just like, oh yeah, all the units are cool, like camel cavalry, great, but man, giant bow with guys like arms that are the size of tree trunks, just blam. There's something really cool about that.
Yeah, right. They're very versatile, but you have to be very careful not to be caught in forest or deep forest, because yeah.
That's awesome. So I know that we've had a lot of fun kind of going back and forth and trying these different areas and different cultures and whatnot. I think as we're messing with these things, there's probably aside from just the units, are there other favorite cultures that you've been? I asked this question of Virginia too, stories and as the research as you're going through, have there been maybe new things in both from a game perspective as well as a historical perspective, new things that you've learned while you've been working on this that make you kind of go, oh wow, this culture is kind of interesting, and I actually like playing this, or I like exploring this as a designer and a developer?
I'm trying to see the possibilities of the units that are historically based, and try to represent them from a gameplay point of view, so that they work in the game and don't remain just thematic difference in the model of the unit or something like this. And it's very, very challenging, and doing this I have to read more about the units and see, for example, the Mamelukes are very versatile because they are good, sometimes used like heavy cavalry, shock cavalry. Other times they're better in range archery and so on. And it's always interesting to study such details of the actual units. The connection between the gameplay and the history is what I find fascinating.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Alex, it's an exciting conversation. I love creating these different moments and making them more immersive. So it's really cool to share about them. We're going to go into questions here for a minute. We have a good 20-minute chunk for questions, so hopefully people are eager to ask, and we'll go through a number of different ones. Before we start on questions, I want to add one clarifying comment in here, because I know everyone, and I really appreciate all the eagerness, wants to see more gameplay, wants to see more feature functionality. Something that we're going to be doing hopefully very soon is adding more of that content in there. But to be frank, the game is still very much in development. A lot of the UI is still, we call it programmer art, where you can kind of work some of the features and play with them, but they're not really something that you would ever really show publicly. Some of it's pretty, rough and around the edges. So as we get more of some of these things solidified and we're gonna start showing more gameplay functionality and features. Hopefully in the next couple months we'll be able to show more. Some of it's still very much part of just the progression of the game, but I do want to, we wanted to get these dev streams and dev diaries going early so we could show you how we're building this game. You can see some of these conversations, you can ask questions, we can get some of that feedback, and you have one of the main designers right here listening and reading your questions. It helps us understand where people's attention are, what they're excited about. So I'm hoping that you find this stuff engaging and fun, and you're enjoying it. And I know everyone's eager to see more of the game and work. Trust me, and I know Alex is really eager to show it. Hopefully soon we'll be able to show more. And I just ask for a little more patience as we continue to develop and refine some of this stuff. So when we put our foot forward, it's going to be a foot forward that you're going to really enjoy. So just wanted to cover that, because I've been seeing that come up a lot in Discord and the forums and whatnot. And we're not being shy. It's not out of don't look. It's more because things are very volatile and still being developed, and we need time to bring them to the point where we can show them. So I
can't wait to get to the beta stage, because there then you see how the people use everything you've put in the game, and it's always different from what you thought it will happen. So I love that stage, but yeah, we have to take our time to not to disappoint people. We have big expectations to meet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's definitely a kind of a tee off to a certain degree, because it's also related to the release date. Everyone's always asking, when are you going to release the game? When's the game coming out? And to your point, we want to take our time and make sure that the game is the best it can possibly be, and that sometimes takes time to let that happen. So I'm not saying that we do have some ideas of where we think the game will come out, but we're just not going to announce anything until we know. We want to make sure that if things need to change, or if we need time to go react to feedback, or like Alex said, we start messing with units and it breaks balance and we have to go revisit some of the stuff, that we allow that time to happen and not rush into it. So I hate saying be patient. I'm a gamer too. I know what it's like. So I understand. But give us the time so we can make it the best game we can. So hopefully you appreciate that. So now let's go into questions. And I know we have quite a few. I'm going to start because I saw my man Ivory Knight in the chat, and he always seems to I don't know how, I don't know if it's a race or not, but it seems like he always ends up at the top of the question pile on the response. I have this feeling that Ivory Knight just sits there on Tuesday, just refreshing and waiting for or he has some kind of notification, because he seems to jump on the chat right away and post in the forums. So by the way, the forum, community.knightsofhonor.com, come join. Maybe you guys can beat Ivory Knight to the punch in another Dev Diary posting in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and read his question. So Ivory Knight says, when you assimilate a province, does the culture of that province change, or is there a mechanic which is separate for culture changing? Also, if that culture change, also if that culture does change, or there is a way to change a culture of a province, does the building style, the visuals change accordingly to fit the cultural change?
Right. Currently, the culture of the province does not change instantly when you take the province. So you have to make some additional steps in order for that to happen. Or it can happen over time if you have a strong cultural influence. And when that happens, the architecture style does not change because it represents the style of a city which has been built there for centuries, and it does not change just in an instant. Even now you can see cultural influences if you go in some old cities and so on. So yeah.
Very cool. Hopefully that's a good answer for you to Ivory Knight. I don't know if your other half is watching, but shout out to her as well. I keep it going. See, you get on the forums, you get some shout outs. So the next one was from Field Marshal, and this is another question from the forums. It says, is converting cultures the only way of making a province's population loyal, or is it possible to simply accept culture as part of the nation's nation next to the primary one? So is a conversion always possible, or can you have kind of like the old Roman style where you had different cultures that are separate and managed by their own but still part of the Roman Empire? And he then goes on to ask the tyrannical question, which is also, if I want to subjugate my people, can I do that too? But I think the first one is interesting. Is there ways that you can kind of allow those individual cultures to exist but still kind of profit from them?
It's very interesting. We actually we already had for a brief time kingdom tradition, and I'm not going to get in details for that, but you can play in such strategy that you're tolerant, and this reduces the tension from other cultures and religions. Okay. And yeah, right now in the current version, it is not part of the game, so you better convert them, but it may find its way back in the game to have a more multicultural kingdom.
So it's kind of like you're, and I know we're not talking about the feature, but it's like having these modifiers or these things on your kingdom that may allow those diverse cultures to not have as much of a tension inside of your kingdom if you go and conquer. So the need to go and to convert them is not as strong. But I imagine, like anything that's a trade-off, if you decide to go that route, then you're going to miss out on other bonuses. So it's just kind of a decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. So another question by Quintinev. It says, will there be possibilities to influence other countries' cultures with spies or other members of the royal court? And will armies of other cultures marching through your province influence their culture? Oh, Alex, give me the
sorry, I get temporary interruption. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did you hear my question?
Yeah, okay. I think I got the bigger part of it. There are mechanics to mess up with the culture of other kingdoms, and yeah, they're spy related. Also, there are other mechanics which influence your neighbors. So you can either do it on a distant lands and quickly using spies, or you can do it by having very influential culturally kingdom. And these are the two ways. So yeah, yes, you definitely can.
I love the question about the royal court because it's something that we're working through quite a bit, trying to figure out how to make the royal court connect to all these different features. And you know, it's really cool to experiment with maybe even ways that like the cleric or the diplomat, like doing different actions, may end up influencing some of these other systems. And it's something that we're spending a lot of time experimenting with. And I love that the audience out there is getting this message and this vision of the royal court so much they're asking these questions. It's good to see that the ideas there are resonating with the audience. That's really cool.
Yeah. The clerics, we have also discussed possible missions in other kingdoms, so they might also have such a role. Right now they don't. They are part of your, they can convert the culture of your already occupied and controlled territories.
Okay, very cool. So the last forum question we're going to answer before I go to stream questions is from Derico. I think it's Derico is how you pronounce it. He says, greetings. Hi, Derico. May I ask, yes, you may I ask if it will be possible for players to have custom settings on culture? In addition, I think many other factors should also influence cultural influence, such as religion and education power of a kingdom, incidences like political marriage and treaty of alliances, those kind of things. I actually even saw a question pop about could marriages influence culture? So I think that's a very applicable thing to ask.
Right. It's a multi-layered question, so I will try to answer the different parts. First of all, you cannot choose your kingdom culture on start of the game, but if you like modding the game, and this part is especially easy because you have a list of kingdoms and their cultures, you can set up the game as you wish. For example, you can go and change or even add new cultures and so on. This is doable for the modders, but you cannot just select in game menu what culture your kingdom has.
Yeah, good point. There's a lot of I mean, almost every aspect has some connection to modding when it comes to systems like this. There's a lot of opportunity for modders to go in and start tinkering.
Yeah, and it's similar. For example, for marriages, currently marriage does not help you influence a kingdom, but there is a list of things that are that are helpful for influence, and it's possible to add such modifiers.
Very cool. Yeah. So some of the stuff will be supported, some of it not, but where mods are going to be out there, and you guys can always either yourself or you can petition your favorite mod developer to experiment with some of that stuff. And to be honest, we're going to be watching the mod community very carefully when the game comes out, and there may be opportunities for us to take some of the stuff that they're doing and experiment with it ourselves, and maybe release them in patches, or there's lots of other opportunities for us to learn from what the community finds exciting when the game goes live. So if we find that people really like some of these functions, then maybe it's things that we explore later on. So really cool.
Definitely, such ideas are very useful for us because it's if we hear such interesting ideas, we usually discuss them in the team, and it's 10 minutes programming to add them. The game is very open for such modifications, so yeah, just give us such good ideas.
Awesome. All right, so let me now go grab some of the questions from the stream, and thanks to Elena, another person in the background that everyone doesn't get to see, that's helping get all these questions organized so I don't miss anything really cool. So the first question I'm going to answer is by Simply Tony. Simply Tony asks, will the game have the quick combat option as in the first one? I really want that to still be a thing. And I'm guessing they mean like the auto resolve, where you kind of just go and yeah.
Well, of course. I cannot imagine playing a long game without that option. It's very substantial for the game, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's still going to be an opportunity for you to auto resolve and allow the combat to happen by itself. And you know, we're actually spent. I think we talked about this in a previous Dev Diary. We spent a good amount of time and actually asked some old Knights of Honor fans, you know, how often they actually use auto resolve versus actually play the RTS combat, trying to figure out the best way to make the RTS combat a fun experience for when players most aptly use it, versus trying to make it an even experience for every single combat scenario. But we found, as we were talking to people, that there were certain situations where players most often played the RTS combat, and there were other situations where they very rarely did. I mean, obviously some people are extremes, they'll always play them or never play them. But it was really cool to see those different reactions. And that's this is a long time ago, but you know, I think it was over a year and a half ago or so we asked these questions, and it certainly helped us in refining both the vision for auto resolve and maybe even experimenting with some new functionality around with it, as well as how we're going to refine what we call battle view internally, and how that's going to you know, be realized. And we'll be talking about more of that in the future.
Yeah, this time we're putting extra effort on the auto resolve, so we are trying to simulate a lot of things.
We'll save some of that for later.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that'll be its own whole Dev Diary, so we gotta leave a little bit of a tease.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So another question. Let's see here. We got this is a quick one. So, good lord, this name. Joaquin Hagar 64. I guess I probably did not say that right. Someone one day is gonna like make a YouTube video of all my horrible pronunciations. I'm gonna be super embarrassed. It says so. Varangians. How do you pronounce that unit's name? Are only mercenaries now? VARA.
I think Varanians. I think the G is silent, or Varangians.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's in English. Sorry.
Yeah. So they're asking basically, are they only mercenaries now?
No. There are special mercenaries you can hire from your town. There are a lot of mercenaries, of course. Almost every unit can be a mercenary. Not every, but yeah.
Yeah, to clarify to that, basically, you know, there's different factors involved in recruiting units in different provinces. So in this example, the Varanians are not mercenaries; they're still units that you'd recruit from your province. Just like other normal units, it's just the factors involved in recruiting them are different. They could be different based on the unit types or the culture that you're in. And I think that was the point that it was making, is that the idea we're experimenting with is for the Varanians, maybe they don't cost population because they only get brought by gold. But no, it's not like you need a mercenary camp. You still get them from a province like normal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so another question. Well, this is and I don't know if we can actually don't know the answer to this one. So if you can't answer it, that's fine. But Topal Penguin asks, will there be war elephants?
It's a difficult question. Right now, we don't have them. We have discussed them a lot of times, and I cannot say for now what will be the final decision. We have some ambient elephants walking around the map, so we have elephants, but we don't have elephant armies so far. I don't know.
Fair enough. Sounds good. All right, so Mossum90 asked, my question for this dev stream, after conquering a province from a different culture, we actually already answered this one. Will the visuals change after the province adopts your culture? Also, what would happen if you change the culture of your empire? Okay, cool. So we already answered that one. I think it's interesting to see some of these questions coming up multiple times. So it's actually informative to see what people are thinking when they read some of this stuff and what their questions are. So great to see that. Another person asks, and this is Azurius asked, will there be a Byzantine empire? I don't see that in the culture dev blog. And I think the answer is absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You really can't have that era without the Byzantines.
Exactly.
Yep. Raven Labs asks a question that we really aren't going to go into detail here, but I'll give kind of some broad strokes. It says, how much economic development will there be? And we're going to do a future dev diary, all probably more than one, honestly, on province development and how that ties into economics. Is actually something that we're messing with quite a bit right now on the development side. So it may be a little bit later on before we talk in the details, because if you think about a game like Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign, the economic structure of the game is so important. And so there's a lot of iteration. I see Alex being like, oh God, but there's a lot of iteration. There's a lot of factors involved, and it's something that we're actually heavily changing and adjusting and modifying right now. So there'll be quite a bit of economic development, and we'll really go into those details a little bit later on.
It's impossible to answer this in a simple manner. It's economy will be important for sure. We want the focus to be conquest, but definitely economy is a crucial part.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's see. We asked Raven Labs asked about how big the map is. Do you actually remember, Alex? I know that Veso mentioned this in another stream, like the percentage larger from Knights of Honor 1 to Knights of Honor 2. I remember he gave the rough answer, but I can't remember the exact number. Do you remember the percentage number he threw out there?
No, but I guess it's something like 30, 40 to 50%, something like this.
Okay. It's much larger.
Yeah.
All right, and then we have a question about release date. As always, Team SP asked, do we have a more accurate release date? I think I talked about that a little bit ago. We still don't have any accuracy on the release date right now, mainly because like Alex and us have been talking about during the stream, we want the game to have the amount of time in order to flourish and be as good as it can be. We'll go into the release date at a later time, but right now it's still, it'll be released when it's done. And then Azurius asks, when will we have a complete visual of all the map? Well, to be honest, Azurius, I think Alex and I also would like to have a complete visual of all the map. The artists are working very hard to bring the map to life. You actually heard a little bit of a tease from Alex about how there are ambient elephants wandering around. We're trying to make the map be kind of, we use the word diorama. It's this kind of like world in miniature, where the world kind of comes to life as you're looking around the map, and it feels very immersive. So that takes quite a bit of time for the artists and animators and all the different people that are involved to create those individual assets and set them up and get them all looking good. So I don't have a time frame we're going to show the entire map. It's probably going to be much closer to a release date, to be honest, because there's a lot of work there. But we'll be showing more of the map as we progress, and you'll be able to see different areas. I know that the team has been working hard and kind of going through different areas and adding more trees and foliage and whatnot. So we'll get some more stuff there. I've also seen a lot of questions about the closed beta, open beta. We still are navigating how we're going to handle our beta process for Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign. We're definitely going to have some type of beta, and there's going to be a way for people to potentially get involved. But how we're going to do that and when we're going to do it is still something very much being discussed. Our goal with any beta is to get feedback from the appropriate audiences so that we can use that to refine and polish the game and make the game as good as it can be when it releases. So stay tuned for more information on that. It'll be down the road. You'll probably get a sense of when the beta announcement is going to happen as we're showing more and more of gameplay. And then we'll be able to talk about that in detail later on. So stay tuned for that. Well, Alex, I think that's pretty much the show.
Yeah.
We
can
we made it. Virtual high five. DevStream 6. Thank you so much, Alex, for answering all the questions today and being a part of it. Really appreciate your time. And everyone, really glad you guys joined us for this Dev Diary and DevStream. Hope you had a lot of fun. Please join our community. We have the forums, community.knightsofhonor.com. It's where all the Dev Diaries get posted. You can learn more every 3 or 4 weeks or so. I think right now the next Dev Diary is going to be tentatively on about Rebellion, I think is what we said we were aiming for. And so
it's almost ready.
Oh, hey, look at that. The first draft is coming soon. So right now the dates for that Dev Diary, we're hoping to post it on June 2nd. And of course the Dev Stream on that Thursday, June 4th. So for all of those that are marking on their calendars, go ahead and pencil that in. June 2nd and June 4th is our target. Obviously, those could move. Things can sometimes change, but that's the target we're heading for. So hooray! Stay tuned for Rebellion there. Also, we have our Facebook group, we have Discord, we have our YouTube list where all the videos go up after the fact. So if you missed the Dev Stream or you want to watch it over again, it'll be up on YouTube in the next couple days. Really excited about you guys joining. So if you guys would like to join, we'd love to have you. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
See ya.
Cheers.